This is a video of how to go about creating a drawing of the exploded view of your selfie stick in Fusion 360 with parts list and balloons. You'll notice that I have my exploded view of my selfie stick here. This is the fourth time I tried to go in and create different types of exploded views with transform up here. I've done some different, methods, and I'm gonna have different storyboards when we create a new drawing. So I'm gonna go to animation and go to drawing and go to from animation. And when I come over here, there's different methods that I use to try to explode the view, and I went too far on this one, so I created, a new storyboard, and I kind of went through and saw different ways that I wanted to create, the animation, and I can go through and pick whichever one I want. Now, if you only did one, like obviously I don't want this assembled view. I do like storyboard 4 that I did. So I created different types of ways to take the selfie stick apart and distances and things like that. I'm going to stick with this one. And we're just going to keep the template from scratch. We could browse for a template. We're just going to keep it. And I'm going to keep it at sheet size A, 11 by 8.5. And I'm going to say OK. And it's going to automatically generate for me a brand new drawing. Now, notice how it says various projects. I just have a folder in Fusion 360 called various projects. This is one of the projects I was working on. So if I go to 1/8 and I come up to 1/4, this looks like a fair size. But remember, we're going to be placing a parts list in here, and we have to do balloons. So 1/4 looks too big, and 1/8 looks too small. I'm going to go in and say, I want 1/6. You might not see that. That's way too big. I want to go 1:6. So one thing I might do in here, it says 1.6 in this case. I want 1:6. So a ratio of 1 to 6. And I'm going to go ahead and place this. And I want to say OK. And we have for ourselves the lines that showed how we took it apart, the axis lines that exist. And we also have this title block down here at the bottom. Now, if I don't really want a title block, I have this title block down. I'm going to right click on that, and I might say, I want to edit the title block. I want to completely get rid of it. So if I go to change title block up here, I might want to take away some things and go away from that. If I hit undo, I can right click on title block again, and just go to edit properties and say, I really don't want to keep this. I could come in here, I can change the name of different things. I can go to finish properties. If I go to change title block again, let's just get away of let's not even display the title block. Let's get rid of that. So there's different things you can do with a title block. I'm just going to drag this kind of down here towards the bottom because we are going to be placing a table. So I'm going to come up to table, and it's automatically going to see the selfie stick as the object we're going to be creating a parts list of. And I'm going to click to place it, and you're going to see automatically it's going to give me the balloons. Now the balloons are going right into the object. I want to drag the view down a little bit. And I'd like to be able to drag, the view of the parts list over. So if I just hold on to one of the words, I click on the parts list itself, I can hopefully just click on one of the words and kind of drag this over here to the side. Should allow me just to drag over. Now, you'll notice that I have a lot going on with the parts list, and it's taking up a lot of my page. Now, if I don't want to keep everything that's on the parts list, I can just double click when it highlights. And I really don't need a description right now. And you could also say that for the sake of discussion, I really don't need material. I'm going to say close. And what that's going to allow me to do is drag this over, and it's going to take up a little bit less space, and it's going to give me some more room to work with. So I'm going to kind of drag this over to here. Now, when we create balloons on a parts list, we don't want it to go through any object. So as I click and hold down on this and try to, drag this over, that one's fine. A lot of these are fine, but let's just say for the sake of discussion that you don't like one of the balloons. I'm going to click on one of these balloons, and I'm just going to right click and go to delete. And I'm going to come back up to balloon up here at the top. And I can click on one of these objects, and I can drag out and say, I'm just going to place this balloon here because I want this pointer to be actually right here in the middle. And I'm going to say close. And you can go in and you can place balloons as you wish. Now, for some reason, it wasn't letting me select right on that. I'm going to select on the actual object itself. I can hit delete on my keyboard also. That'll be easier. I'm just going to click on balloon, click on the object, and I'm going to drag out, and I can place balloons this way. I can also just, click inside the object and kind of drag them in closer. However I wish to place the balloons is how I can place them. You might want to place them manually yourself or keep these. You can. Now we're going to go up to text. We can click on text and drag for ourselves a window, and we can place whatever text we want right here in this box. We'll get a little dialog box, and you might say, selfie, or we might call this Comes right up here. I'm gonna go. It says I want to go to. I'm gonna keep it in all caps. Selfie stick exploded view with balloons, and say close. And that's a way we can go out placing text on the object. We could actually, come into the parts list and add more things, but just for the sake of this view, I really only want to keep what we have. Now, if I said, I want this to be in color, I can go to Edit View up here at the top, and we might say, I want this to be totally filled right here with the actual color of the selfie stick. You can change your isometric view according to the view cube you had, but this is the isometric view that we use to make the animated exploded view. We would generally want to keep with that unless you wanted to change it. So when you actually place the view at the beginning, you can change the appearance, you can change the scale. We can kind of change to where it's going to show tangent edges. If it had any kind of threads, we might want to show those thread edges. So we do have some threads in here, and we actually see those edges there. They look a little bit blurry. They can take, when you try to render something, that can take up a little bit of memory. But to create the exploded view of the selfie stick and show each part and how it relays to the parts list and also the components that you have when you're creating the assembly, we would need to see a drawing like this to find out what everything's named. So, number 6 here, that's the stick bottom, and 5 is the stick top, and we know what everything is made. If we think that by looking at this, we can change the scale a little bit, I'm going to go to Edit View here. We were at 1/6 or 1 to 6. I want to come up here to the top and say, what? I think we might be able to go back to 1 to 4. Let's see what happens here. Is that too big now? Maybe we can come in and actually move this around a little bit. So as we go about creating, drawings, we can always decide, the scaling and whether or not we think we can move things around. So I like this scaling myself. If we click here in the middle, let's see if we can drag this in just a little bit and take up a little bit more of the page. I always say you paid for the whole page, you might as well use all of it. So we can just keep that. And this is a nice, full use of the economy of the sheet of paper. You want to take up the full sheet of paper. You don't want a small area. We got rid of the title block, which can be a necessity. I can encourage you to create your own title block. I have another video about how to create a custom title block where it pulls information and just puts it down here on the bottom and gives you a lot more room to communicate things about the design as opposed to just that information that's in the title block. So this has been a video on how to go about creating a drawing of your exploded selfie stick view with a parts list and balloons and how to scale a view.